The evening was cold and quiet. The sky was turning dark, and the city lights were slowly coming on. People were walking fast outside the train station. Some were going home after work. Some were talking on their phones. Some were laughing. No one was really looking around. Near the corner of the station wall stood a thin woman. Her coat was old and too big for her body. Her shoes were broken at the front. Her hair was not clean, and the wind pushed it across her face. In front of her feet was a small paper cup. Inside the cup were only 2 coins. Most people did not even notice her. Her name was Elena, but nobody there knew that. To them, she was just another homeless woman asking for help. For a few minutes, she stood silently. She looked at the ground. She looked at the cup. The cold air made her hands shake. She had not eaten properly for 2 days. Her stomach hurt, but she was used to that pain. Then she closed her eyes. She took a slow, deep breath, and she started to sing. At first, her voice was soft, almost like a whisper. The noise of cars and people almost covered it. But she did not stop. Her voice grew stronger. It rose above the traffic sounds. It floated through the cold air. It was not just a normal song. It was full of feeling. Her voice carried sadness, hope, and something broken deep inside her heart. It sounded like someone who had lost everything but still refused to give up. A young man walking past suddenly slowed down. He turned his head. A little girl stopped and looked at her mother. "Mom, she sings nice," the girl said softly. The mother looked for a second, then gently pulled her daughter's hand. "Come on, we are late," she said. Most people kept walking. Some threw a quick coin into the cup without looking at her face. Some avoided eye contact. Some acted like they did not hear anything. But a few stopped. A small circle slowly formed around her. Not big, maybe 5 or 6 people. They stood quietly, listening. Elena kept her eyes closed while she sang. When she sang, she forgot the cold. She forgot the hunger. She forgot the hard ground where she slept at night. For those few minutes, she was not homeless. She was just a girl with a voice. Across the street, a black car stopped at a red light. Inside sat a man in his early 40s. He wore a clean suit and an expensive watch. His face looked tired. His name was Daniel Ross, a well-known music producer. He had just finished a long meeting. His phone was full of messages. His head hurt from too much noise and too many fake smiles. The traffic light stayed red. Then he heard something. At first, he thought it was just street noise. But then the sound became clearer. A voice. Powerful, emotional voice. He looked around, confused. Then he saw her, standing alone near the station wall, singing like her heart was breaking. Daniel slowly rolled down his car window. The cold air rushed inside, but he did not care. He listened carefully. There was something different about her voice. It was not perfect like studio singers. It was not trained, but it was real, very real. The light turned green. Cars behind him started honking, but Daniel did not move. He kept listening. For the first time in a long time, he felt something deep inside his chest. Something honest. Something he had not felt in years. The cars behind him honked again, louder this time. He finally pressed the gas and drove forward. But instead of going home, he turned the corner and parked near the station. He stepped out of the car. The cold air hit his face. He walked slowly toward the small crowd around the singing woman. Elena was reaching the last part of her song. Her voice grew stronger, then softer. Then it stopped. For a few seconds, there was silence. The small group clapped gently. One man dropped a few coins into her cup. Another person smiled and walked away. Elena opened her eyes. She looked down at the cup. Only a few more coins. But when she looked up again, she saw a man standing in front of her. He was not dressed like the others. He looked serious. He looked like someone important. She quickly lowered her eyes, thinking maybe he would tell her to leave. Instead, he asked softly, "Where did you learn to sing like that?" She looked up slowly, confused. No one had asked her that in years. And in that quiet moment, standing in the cold night outside the train station, Neither of them knew that this simple question was about to change both of their lives forever. Elena did not answer Daniel's question right away. She looked at him carefully. She had seen many faces before. Some were kind for a moment. Some were curious. Some were cruel. She had learned not to trust people too quickly. But there was something different in his eyes. He was not looking at her like she was invisible. He was not looking at her with pity. He was looking at her like she was important. "I learned from my father," she said quietly. Her voice was no longer strong like when she sang. Now it was soft and careful. Daniel waited. He did not rush her. Elena looked down at her hands. They were cold and dry. She slowly began to speak, like someone opening an old, painful memory. "When I was little, my father played guitar," she said. "Our house was small, but it was always full of music. He said my voice was a gift." As she spoke, her mind traveled back many years. She remembered a tiny kitchen with yellow walls. She remembered sitting on a wooden chair, swinging her feet while her father played old songs. He was not rich. He worked long hours at a repair shop. But every night, no matter how tired he was, he would smile and say, "Sing for me, Elena." And she would sing. Not for money, not for food, just for love. Her father believed she would one day stand on a big stage. He would clap loudly in the front row. He would tell everyone, "That is my daughter." Elena used to dream about bright lights and microphones. She used to stand in front of the mirror and pretend she was famous. She would bow and laugh. Life felt warm back then, but warm days do not always stay. When Elena turned 20, her father became sick. First, it was small, a little cough, a little weakness. Then the doctors found something serious, very serious. Hospital visits became normal. Bills started to grow. Elena left her college classes. She began working at a cafe during the day and cleaning offices at night. She was always tired, but she never complained. She sold her father's old guitar to pay for medicine. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. She cried quietly after giving it away. The house that once had music became silent. Her father tried to smile through the pain. One night, he held her hand and said, "No matter what happens, never stop singing." Those were the last clear words he spoke. After he passed away, everything felt empty. The house was too quiet. The kitchen walls felt cold. Without her father's laugh, the place no longer felt like home. Soon after, she could not pay the rent. The landlord was not cruel, but he needed his money. Elena packed her clothes in 2 bags. She thought it would only be for a few days. But days became weeks. Weeks became months. Friends promised help at first. "Stay with us for a while," they said. But problems make people uncomfortable. Slowly, phone calls stopped. Messages became shorter. Doors closed politely. Elena never thought she would sleep on a bench. The first night outside was the hardest. The ground was cold. The sky felt too big. Every sound felt dangerous. She held her bag tight and did not sleep much. The next morning, hunger hit her like a wave. She had no money left. She sat near the train station because many people passed by there. At first, she just held a small sign that said, "Hungry, please help." Most people ignored her. One afternoon, while sitting there, she heard a street musician playing nearby. Something moved inside her heart. She remembered her father's words, "Never stop singing." That evening, she stood up. Her legs were shaking. Her heart was beating fast. It had been years since she sang in front of strangers. But she closed her eyes, and she sang. The first few notes felt weak. But then the music inside her chest returned. People turned their heads. Some stopped. A few dropped coins into her cup. It was not much, but it was enough for bread. From that day, singing became her way to survive. Not because she wanted fame anymore, but because it was the only thing she had left that the world could not take from her. Back at the station, standing in front of Daniel, all these memories passed through her mind like a silent movie. She finished her story softly. "I sing for food now," she said. "That is all." Daniel felt a weight in his chest. He had worked with many artists. Some sang for money. Some sang for fame. Some sang for attention. But this woman sang because it was the only light left in her darkness. He looked at her differently now, not as a homeless woman, but as someone who had once dreamed big, and maybe still could. He reached into his pocket and slowly pulled out a small card. He handed it to her. "My studio," he said. "Come tomorrow morning. Just come and sing." Elena stared at the card in her hand. A studio. A real one. She almost laughed. It sounded impossible. But Daniel's face was serious. For the first time in years, a small spark of hope touched her heart. Elena did not sleep that night. She sat on the cold bench near the station, holding the small card Daniel had given her. She kept reading the name again and again. Daniel Ross. Even she had heard that name before. Years ago, when she still had a home and a television. She remembered seeing his face in interviews. He was the man who discovered famous singers. The man who turned unknown voices into stars. But what would someone like him want with someone like her? Maybe it was a joke. Maybe he felt sorry for her. Maybe he would forget by morning. She held the card tightly in her hand as if it could disappear. Across the city, Daniel also could not sleep. He sat alone in his large apartment. The walls were white and clean. The furniture was expensive, but the place felt empty. He poured himself a glass of water and stood near the window, looking down at the city lights. He kept hearing her voice in his head. It was not perfect. It was not polished, but it was honest. For many years, Daniel had worked with singers who cared more about money than music. Many of them used technology to fix their voices. Many sang words they did not even feel. The music industry had become cold. He remembered his early days when he loved discovering real talent, when music meant something. But lately he felt tired. Until that night, there was something in Elena's voice that woke up something inside him. The next morning, Daniel reached the studio early. He told his assistant to cancel all meetings until noon. "Someone special is coming," he said. At the train station, Elena stood in front of the public restroom mirror. She washed her face with cold water. She tried to clean her coat as much as she could. She used her fingers to fix her hair. She looked at herself carefully. The woman in the mirror looked tired, but her eyes still had light. "Just go," she whispered to herself. She walked to the address on the card. The building was tall and modern, with glass walls that reflected the sky. She stopped outside the door. People in suits walked in and out. No one looked like her. Her heart started beating fast. "What am I doing here?" she thought. For a moment she turned around. But then she remembered her father's voice. "Never stop singing." She walked inside. The guard at the front desk looked at her clothes and raised his eyebrows. "Yes?" he asked. She slowly placed the card on the desk. "I was told to come," she said softly. The guard checked the name and suddenly his expression changed. He picked up the phone and made a call. A few minutes later, Daniel himself walked into the lobby. He smiled when he saw her. "You came," he said. She nodded, still unsure if this was real. He led her through long hallways filled with posters of famous artists. Gold records hung on the walls. Elena looked at them with wide eyes. Each frame told a story of success, but she felt small walking beside them. They entered a large room with microphones and big speakers. Smelled clean and new. "This is the studio," Daniel said. Elena stood very still. She had imagined a place like this many times when she was young, but she never thought she would stand inside one. Daniel showed her the microphone. "Just sing," he said gently. "Sing the same way you did last night." Her hands started shaking. There were people behind the glass window watching. Engineers with headphones. They looked serious. Fear slowly filled her chest. "What if I fail?" she thought. "What if my voice sounds bad in here?" Daniel noticed her fear. "Forget the room," he said softly. "Close your eyes. Sing like you are back at the station." She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and began. At first, her voice trembled. The microphone felt strange. The room felt too quiet. But then she remembered the cold wind, the empty cup, the nights alone. Her voice grew stronger. She sang not just with sound, but with memory, with pain, with hope. The engineers slowly looked at each other. One of them removed his headphones slightly and whispered, "Wow!" Daniel stood still, not moving, not speaking. Her voice filled every corner of the room. It was raw. It was real. When she finished, there was complete silence. No one clapped. No one spoke. Elena slowly opened her eyes. The silence scared her. "Was it bad?" she asked quietly. Daniel walked closer. There was something different in his face now. Emotion. "You have no idea what you just did," he said. Behind the glass, one engineer wiped his eyes. Another nodded slowly. Daniel turned to his team. "We are recording this," he said firmly. Elena's heart stopped for a second. Recording? Her? She looked down at her hands. Just yesterday, she was singing for coins. Now she was standing in a professional studio. Life can change in one moment, but sometimes that moment feels too big to believe. As the recording light turned red, Elena realized something. Elena did not know that her life was changing. That evening, she stood in her usual place near the train station wall. The same cold wind touched her face. The same people walked past her. The same small paper cup sat at her feet. She sang like she always did. But across the city, inside Daniel's studio, something unexpected was happening. The video of Elena singing had been online for only 2 hours. At first, only a few people watched it. Some of Daniel's followers clicked out of curiosity. Then someone shared it. Then another person. Then a popular music blogger reposted it with one simple sentence. "Rawest voice I have heard in years." Within minutes, the numbers began to rise. 1,000 views, 5,000, 10,000. Comments started appearing fast. "Who is she? Why is this making me cry? This voice is pure. This is real music." Daniel sat in front of the computer screen, watching the numbers grow. Even he did not expect this. One of his assistants walked into the room. "Sir, it is going crazy," she said, pointing at the screen. The video was spreading like fire. By midnight, it had over 200,000 views. By early morning, it crossed 1 million. And Elena still had no idea. She slept that night on the same bench near the station, holding her coat tight around her body. She dreamed of her father smiling and clapping for her. The next morning, she woke up to the sound of footsteps and voices. But something felt different. People were standing near her, not just walking past. Standing, looking at her. She felt nervous. "Is something wrong?" she thought. She slowly stood up and picked up her cup. Then a young woman stepped closer. "Are you the singer from the video?" the woman asked softly. Elena blinked. "What video?" she replied. The young woman quickly showed her phone screen. There she was, standing in the studio, eyes closed, singing. Elena's hands began to shake. "That's me," she whispered. The young woman smiled with tears in her eyes. "You are amazing," she said. "Your voice helped me last night." More people gathered. Some asked for pictures. Some just wanted to say thank you. Elena felt confused. This had never happened before. Just yesterday, people barely looked at her. Now they were looking at her like she mattered. Suddenly, she saw Daniel running toward her from across the street. He looked excited, almost out of breath. "Elena," he called. She turned to him, still holding the phone in her hand. "What is happening?" she asked. Daniel smiled widely. "Your song reached over 1 million people," he said. She stared at him. "1 million?" she repeated softly. He nodded. "And it is still growing." Tears filled her eyes. 1 million people had heard her voice. 1 million. The same voice she once thought was worth nothing. The same voice she used just to buy bread. But the moment did not stay peaceful for long. A black car suddenly stopped near the station. 2 men stepped out, dressed sharply in suits. They looked serious. They walked straight toward Daniel. "We need to talk," one of them said. Daniel recognized them immediately. They were from a large music company, one of the biggest. "We saw the video," the man continued. "We want to sign her." Immediately, Elena looked from Daniel to the strangers. Sign her? Everything felt too fast. Daniel stayed calm. She is not ready for contracts, he said firmly. The man smiled slightly. She is ready for success, he replied. And success moves quickly. Elena felt fear rise inside her. Just yesterday, she was invisible. Today, powerful people wanted her signature. She did not even have a home. She looked at Daniel, searching for guidance. The men handed over a paper. Think fast, one of them said. Opportunities like this do not wait. They returned to their car. Silence filled the space again. Elena's heart was beating loudly. Is this real? She asked Daniel. He looked serious now. Yes, he said. But you must be careful. She looked down at the paper in her hands. Her life was changing faster than she could understand. The same world that once ignored her was now knocking at her door. But was it knocking to help her, or to use her? As the crowd slowly faded and the morning light grew brighter, Elena realized something important. Fame can arrive in one night, but trust takes much longer. And the next choice she made could decide everything. The paper in Elena's hands felt heavier than it looked. It was just a contract, just a few pages, but it carried the power to change her life forever. She sat on a bench outside the train station, staring at it. People still looked at her differently now. Some whispered, some smiled, some pointed at their phones and then at her. Daniel stood beside her quietly. What does it say? She asked softly. Daniel took the papers and read carefully. His face became serious. They want to control your music, he said. Your songs, your image, your story. Elena frowned. Is that bad? It depends, Daniel replied. You will get money, a home, fame, but you may lose your freedom. Freedom, that word stayed in her mind. For years she had nothing. No house, no safety, no comfort. But she still had her voice. She still sang the way she wanted. Would that change? The two men in suits returned in the afternoon. Have you decided? One asked confidently. Elena looked at them, then at Daniel. I don't understand these papers, she admitted. The man smiled politely, but his eyes were cold. You don't need to understand everything, he said. Just sign. We will take care of the rest. Daniel stepped forward. She needs time, he said firmly. The second man crossed his arms. Time is not always kind in this industry, he replied. People forget quickly. Elena felt pressure building inside her chest. What if this was her only chance? What if tomorrow the world stopped caring? She imagined sleeping on the cold bench again. She imagined hunger returning. Fear whispered in her mind. Sign it. Take the safe path. But another voice, softer and stronger, whispered something else. Her father's voice. Never stop singing. Not never stop earning. Not never stop becoming famous. Never stop singing. The men grew impatient. We have other artists waiting, one said. This is a big opportunity. Elena stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, but her voice did not. I am thankful, she said gently, but I want to sing my way. The men exchanged looks. You are making a mistake, one warned. Maybe, she said quietly, but I want to understand before I sign anything. The men sighed and returned to their car, clearly unhappy. When they drove away, Elena felt both relief and fear. What if they never come back? She asked Daniel. He looked at her with respect. Then we build your path differently, he said. That night, Daniel invited her to stay in a small guest room above the studio. It was not fancy, but it was warm. Clean sheets, a soft pillow. Elena lay in the bed and stared at the ceiling. It felt strange to sleep inside walls again. She thought about the millions of people who had heard her voice. She thought about the contract, about fame, about risk. She also thought about the station, about the cold nights, about the people who still sat there unseen. The next morning, Daniel showed her something new. More messages, more comments. Some were from music teachers offering help. Some were from small producers wanting to work with her. But one message caught her attention. It was from a young boy. My mom is sick, the message said. Last night she was in pain. We played your song. She smiled for the first time in weeks. Thank you. Elena felt tears fill her eyes. Her voice had reached someone far away. Not for fame, not for money, but for comfort. Daniel watched her quietly. This is why your voice matters, he said. Elena nodded slowly. I don't want to lose this, she said. I don't want to become someone fake. Daniel smiled. Then don't, he replied. They decided to release another simple video. No big company, no large contract, just her voice and a small piano. But something inside Elena had changed. She was no longer singing just to survive. She was singing to connect. And when she returned to the train station that weekend, she did something unexpected. Instead of standing alone, she invited another homeless man who played guitar to join her. Sing with me, she said. He looked shocked. No one wants to hear me, he said. She smiled gently. They once said that about me. As they began to sing together, people stopped again. But this time, Elena was not just the woman asking for food. She was the woman giving hope. The crowd grew larger than ever before. Phones recorded. Smiles spread. Coins filled not only her cup, but the guitarist's too. Daniel stood at a distance, watching proudly. She had made her choice. Not the fastest path. Not the richest path. But the real one. And sometimes the real path takes longer, but it lasts forever.